Welcome back, viewers. Excuse the attire. Wonderful work clothes for my job that I love dearly. Anyway, back to discussion on experimental film, silent film, video oddities, ends, whatnot, and etc. All the stuff that people don't really talk about on YouTube. Today we're gonna get into a film that is not one, or it's not a genre of film that I'm totally interested in talking about all the time on this channel, just because I feel like it's already these types of films are already widely covered by a lot of people on YouTube. So today we're going to talk about Ray Dennis Steckler's 1969 film Body Fever, which is a low budget B movie, maybe Z movie, not horror, surprisingly, for this guy who I love. I love Ray Dennis Steckler's films, but not horror. It's more of a neo-noir mystery murder film about, of course, Ray Dennis Steckler himself playing a detective, a private detective hunting down a cat burglar who we see at the beginning of the film steals a whole load of something, drugs. It's low budget, it's fun, it's short, it's fast, it flies by, it's very cartoonish. It at times very much feels like a comic book, like a detective comic story, which is very fun and exciting and at times extremely ridiculous. But it never gets boring, at least it doesn't for me. Ray Dennis Steckler's films never get boring for me. They're always living in this realm of absolute bizarro or just like the level of craftsmanship is so low at times that it's hard to look away from, and it just makes for these absolutely astonishing moments, which is why I love Z level movies so much. Even though I think that this is his most technically masterful work that I've seen so far. Far and away, leagues above. God, what's it called? Blood Shack. Even though Blood Shack came after this one, leagues in a way above Blood Shack, so I think he got lazier over the time, which makes for some very interesting watches nonetheless. But anyway, now let's talk about this one. Yeah, this film, with its neo-noir style, it's not black and white or whatever, etc., throwing all that trash out the door. This one's colorful, playful, self-aware, wacky, attempting to be tongue-in-cheek of neo-noir films. His narrations are very ridiculous and funny, and at many points making fun of traditional noir narrations. This film is full of short, fast, comedic fights, pounds of drugs, and half-naked women dancing away on the stage with colorful lights all around. So the story goes, the cat burglar steals the drugs, which is then stolen from her. And then Ray Dennis Steckler's job as a private detective is to find Carolyn Brandt, the actress who stole the drugs, and track her down, get the drugs back, and, there we go. But, excuse me, but as this is neo-noir mystery, things get twisted. Ray Dennis Steckler at first is following a chain of people. Each person leads him to another person, and quite the chain it is. It is a strung together chain of scenes of Ray Dennis Steckler talking to one person in a very comedic, bizarre conversation, as usual, for his films. You know, he goes from one to the next, to the next, to the next, who he also happens to have sex with, to the next, who he also happens to have sex with. And it's really just, the chain is just this device that allows some sort of vague mystery to happen, and also a device to be able to allow Ray Dennis Steckler to film interesting locations and fun conversations that are, you know, bizarro, straight out of his own mind. The interesting locations aspect is very important. We have a train yard that is wide open, crazy industrial visions of the world. Wide open landscapes that are barren. We have the mountains of LA. We have a bizarre underground hippie basement that is spray painted and colorful and full of hippies. We've got a bizarre furniture warehouse setup that has a whole array of what looks like gothic or even medieval furniture, which is where she steals the drugs from, which is on its own hilarious and bizarre. Yeah, the whole thing is, it's this whole film just seems like an excuse for Ray Dennis Steckler to film wherever he has scouted and thought looked cool, and it just seems like things need to happen there for that reason, like the train yard. Oh, we need to have, this train yard would be awesome to run around and have an action scene in, so it's going to be here. But, as opposed to a lot of his other films, the action scenes, sure, they are very fake, they are very funny, they are very cartoonish, but some of them are, again, some of the most technically proficient ones yet, with very fast dollies that is following the action, lots of camera movement, lots of playing around, which is just generally shocking for the guy, who, yeah, there's a lot of inventiveness and fun to be had in all of his films and camera weirdness, but this one just feels very sort of free in not only the story, but just the camera movements and what's going on. The characters change moods all the time. An example of characters changing moods on the fly is this bizarrely put together scene when Ray Dennis Steckler is introduced with this woman who I don't know, it seems to be his assistant or some woman he was having an affair with or whatnot, where in one shot she seems dreadfully tired, and then cut to the next she's all happy-go-lucky yelling around. It's odd. But again, it adds to this, it just adds to this all over the place scrapbook feeling, this construction and the conversations that are bizarre and the action scenes and the locations are all the saving graces of this film, because the monotonous chain would, in any other normal movie, would be just absolutely tedious to get through and dreadful, whereas this, it just feels like this, as I said, this device that allows Ray Dennis Steckler to film whatever wackiness popped into his head that day. Spoilers ahead. Now this is a neo-noir movie, not a traditional noir movie by any stretch of the imagination. It's a neo-noir, very fun sort of thing. So, even though the world that is constructed is full of violence and drugs and chasing around and whatnot, the film actually ends on a pretty positive note, I'd say, where Ray Dennis Steckler and Carolyn Brandt sort of team up in the end, and they're going to sell the drugs themselves, split the money 50-50, and go on their separate ways. But they fall in love. They end up deciding in this crucial scene, out of nowhere, it comes out of nowhere, which just follows Ray Dennis Steckler's schizophrenic logic of all of his films, that nothing comes from anything. Or I should say, no prior events in the film actually lead to any events to the end. All the events and ideas just pop into existence randomly. So these two characters randomly at the end all of a sudden decide that they are going to focus solely on each other's love and build up their own lives anew, as opposed to using the previous kingpin's drugs and his labor to make a quick buck and get rich quick. They're going to put in effort together. And so they start focusing on each other. They literally toss the drugs into the toilet, and the ending scene is the two of them passionately making love. The camera's very close on them, zoomed in. And this is an act of enveloping each other, being totally focused on each other. And it is actually quite beautiful. Ray Dennis, his movies are quite beautiful to me, with the photography and the emotions in them, despite how fake a lot of it can be. There is this genuineness in them, this heart within them that definitely shines through those usually like sun-soaked images. And that definitely happens in these last moments where these two are embracing each other. They are totally focusing on each other and their love and making it together. So there is this positive note at the end of building up yourself and the people you love without relying on other people's labor. Now, the interesting thing is, I don't know if this is actually saying to do this without crime or not. It's kind of implied that they're still going to do crime. Like, just be criminals together, which is funny. But how positive can we be in an RDS feature? But, and of course, this ideology is somewhat steeped in a right-wing philosophy, because, well, as we see in the scene, the documentary type scene that just comes nowhere as usual, where they shoot citizens who are mostly black, going into this, what looks like either welfare or food stamp building, and meanwhile Ray Dennis Steckler's character is just monologuing about how they're all lazy and chose the bottle over hard work or whatnot. And it's just like, bro. Alright, well, no comment there. Yeah, so obviously the ending is a little bittersweet in this regard. I mean, obviously these people, it's not entirely their fault, and by any stretch of the imagination. And a lot of greedy individuals who would actually subscribe to the world, or the ideas posited at the end of the film, are actually the ones that are continuously disenfranchising these people. But easy to poke holes in in this guy's movies. Now that's the general description of the movie and some general ideas, but I also want to get into some little fun bits that just interest me, such as the water in the film, or the presence of water in the film, which is hard to ignore, and very beautiful little moments that are just strange and interesting, such as Steckler's character lives on a boat in the water. I believe he lives in the boat, or he just has a boat. We see him there. There's a moment where he draws with chalk on the sidewalk, and it gets washed away by water, these close-up shots of water flowing down the sidewalk, which are absolutely gorgeous, with the light shimmering, the sunlight shimmering. These little white specks shimmering in the water. And then at the very end, we see the villain, Big Mac, the kingpin, gets, after all the drugs are destroyed and he's left with nothing, he walks up to the water cooler, or crawls over to this water cooler, and the camera cuts to behind the water cooler. We see his face through it, and the water is distorting his face, the water in the glass, and there's this grid that's formed that's sort of like jail bars, and he's trapped in this jar, or behind these bars of water, which is very interesting. It's almost like the water represents this destructive evil force of some sort, because obviously, at the end he has this whole character switch up and he's good. So we can assume that he was less good at the beginning, or bad at the beginning, and just totally selfish in his goals. Obviously not focused on Carolyn Brandt. He didn't even know her yet. So, and he's living on the water, and then the water washes away his message. So it's just this odd, destructive, but beautiful force. And I don't know, maybe that's just this world, this crime world, that is, though it can be beautiful at times and meaningful at times, it is ultimately something you can get trapped within, and it can be destructive to you and your soul. Like, there's also something to be said that his boat is an entity by itself, and it is very isolating. It's not like an aircraft carrier or some parade of boats, even though they're all docked together. Yes, it looks like a parade of boats, but they're all separate entities that are very individualistic, that have their own names, that, one person owns, and they go out themselves and ride on it. And, it's also capital investment, and you have to have a lot of money in order to get one of these things and have the dock space and whatnot. So there is this whole isolating theme, trapped theme, being trapped in a boat on the water, isolated by yourself. Another fun little moment is when there's this chase sequence. Ray Dennis Steckler is chasing this guy through the mountains, and then they run into this cave, this what looks like a real cave they run into, which then cuts to clearly a studio cave, and that is built by using like drapes or canvas or something, and just painted black, and then just dirt tossed on the ground. The set is hilarious and cartoonish and fake, but there is this beautiful quality to it. You know, the way the light's hitting it, the way it's just funny is beautiful. The way that they're taking this fight super seriously, but it's so goddamn fake and ridiculous is awesome. And the way it's just so short and trivial, like he just punches him once basically and he's dead, is hilarious. Yeah, this whole scene is fun, and the way it cuts like that, where it's obviously real and obviously fake, is just a testament to the power of montage and how it can so easily and quickly warp space-time like that is just another beautiful moment that is worth noting. And another one, going back to noir versus neo-noir, there's this interesting aspect about how in noir films there's these deep shadows that cut through the image and provide massive black areas, you know, a lot of contrast in those black and white films. Whereas in this one, there's not that. It's mostly naturalistic lighting. Probably not a lot of lights used at all anyway. And poorly at that. But there are like two specific moments I remember where the whole screen is just a shadow. And in these moments where the whole screen is filled with a black shadow, we don't see any other part of the world. There's something either coming out of the blackness, the shadow, or retreating into it. So it's like this void where life is coming in and out, which speaks to the power of light in cinema anyway. But also, you know, something can probably be read into here just about shadows in cinema and noir and neo-noir in general, and the total reinterpretations of shadows and the going to extremes with them and reusing them in totally different ways. You know, most of the film doesn't even have shadows, and it's very flat. The only times that shadows make their mark is when they totally fill the screen. It's very interesting. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Body Fever, 1969, Ray Dennis Steckler. It's a very funny film. It's really not tedious at all. It breezes by, and it's the conversations, just Ray Dennis Steckler's bizarro, comic book-esque monologues and conversations and narrations are just worth it on its own, besides the beautiful photography. And again, you know, low-budget film, lots of inspirational things to go for in here. And check out his other films; they're absolutely hilarious. Blood Shack is obviously the pinnacle of them, for its absolutely bizarre storytelling style that is unlike anything else. Total, you know, dream nightmare world created in the desert, with gorgeous images. Again, most of his films are absolutely beautiful. Then this film came out before he started doing porn and whatnot, so slightly before he was totally selling out, you know, so and getting, before he was getting lazier, so more technically proficient and exciting camera work to be found in this film. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next discussion. Comments below. You know, just let me know what you were thinking about the film at all, or if you caught any interesting ideas or images or sounds in there. I'm a filmmaker myself. Check out my films in the description. ConnorParsley.com. Peace on earth be with you.